Good evening. Our top story this week. In New Jersey, the Supreme Court rules that the state CPS agents can snatch kids even when there's no evidence of abuse or neglect. In California, a state auditor is going to probe the child protective industry in 3 counties. This after multiple CPS failures and screw-ups, including an 8-year-old boy who died while under the watchful eye of CPS agents. And Los Angeles County terminates the contract of a private foster care contractor for misspending funds and alleged abuse of the kids. Florida is having issues with their non-governmental foster care providers, who are seeing the new state contract offerings as a power grab. In Florida, foster kids are in desperate need of the help that they rarely get while getting set up to live on their own after they get booted out of the system. Illegal immigrant parents who are deported while their anchor babies are still kept in the United States are facing difficult hurdles to reunite with their children. A New Jersey child welfare agency doesn't want to hand over the records in their child death failures to the media in order to protect the privacy of dead kids. In New York, the district attorney wants an audit of the child abuse hotline because kids who have been reported are dying because they're not even bothering to investigate. And President Barack Obama says, quote, "Nothing substitutes for the presence of a parent," end quote, during his Happy Father's Day message. In Texas, Governor Rick Perry signs a bill that requires increased oversight of medications that are given to foster kids. The Texas child protective industry tries to claim that abuse in foster care is rare, and a Texas program that is supposed to address truancy and tardiness in schools is being abused as kids are now being dragged out of class in handcuffs for being late. In Belgium this week, the government is considering using euthanasia for autistic children and Alzheimer's patients. In the Netherlands, cases of sexual abuse while in foster care have doubled over the last year. At least 40 British women have fled to Ireland to have their babies thanks to the overzealous child-snatching habits of the British social workers. And in Scotland, the government is considering a law that would require social workers to be assigned to every child to promote, support, or safeguard the well-being of the child. In Nova Scotia, Canada, the government tries to have a lawsuit tossed after kids in a home for black children sued for the abuse they suffered while in care, but a judge accepts the majority of the affidavits alleging abuse, and then approves a $5 million settlement for the victims instead. In Australia, the government wants to save $20 million by building group homes instead of using motel rooms to house their stolen teenagers, and critics are worried that the child protective industry will create another stolen generation because they're snatching too many Aboriginal kids. In England, the legal aid cuts are overwhelming the family court system as there is now a rash of parents fighting it out in divorce court without lawyers. Google gives £1 million to a British charity that polices child porn online, and members of Parliament vote no confidence in the leadership at the Norfolk County Council Children's Services. In entertainment news this week, Paris Jackson might be going into foster care after her failed suicide attempt. And in sports, basketball legend Allen Iverson is looking at jail time over $40,000 in unpaid child support. In California, a teenager is arrested for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl who ran away from her group home. In Kansas, a 44-year-old woman gets busted for having consensual sex with her 17-year-old foster kid. In Pennsylvania, a former foster father waives his preliminary hearing on child sex charges, and they can't figure out how many kids he did or who they are because the child protective industry didn't bother to keep the records. In Oklahoma, a former CPS agent who was accused of a sex crime against a foster kid gets a deferred sentence after a judge changes his mind and lets him off the hook. In South Carolina, a former resident of a group home is alleging sexual abuse. In Washington, 2 real parents are accusing a judge of letting their 16-year-old daughter go shacking up with her sex offender boyfriend without even listening to their side of it. And a Las Vegas woman is sexually molested by a court officer who then has her arrested for trying to accuse him of assault and has her kid thrown in foster care in the process. In New Mexico, a foster parent is found guilty for 24 counts of child abuse after tasing his foster kids. And in Oregon, a foster father gets 34 months in jail for scalding a foster kid. In Ohio, a 16-year-old girl is arrested for assaulting her CPS agent and stealing her car. In Florida, a real mother tries to hightail it with the kids after a judge tries to give them to CPS agents. In Las Vegas, Nevada, a 2-year-old who disappeared from his foster home 7 years ago still hasn't been found. And 5 young siblings run away from a Las Vegas children's shelter. In Texas, a mother and son reunite after he went to adoption and she posted a picture of herself on Facebook in an effort to find him. In Rhode Island, a school for disabled kids is being accused of running a sweatshop. In Washington, D.C., a family is still fighting off CPS agents more than 6 years after it had been determined that the kids were fine in the home. In Tennessee, a foster mother and the kids lose everything in a fire. In Arizona, a foster foster mother accuses the legislature of making her job harder by not paying more money. And finally, tonight in New York, a mother is suing the city for $50 million after her kids were snatched by CPS agents and are still being held hostage in foster care today after a false drug arrest that was thrown out of court. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.